Hey folks, back again with another quick video because I have another curiosity I want to ask you about, get your opinion on. One of the questions I get a lot when I post a guitar or when I advertise a guitar is what's the nut width? Or what's the width of the nut at the first fret? Sometimes I get the question of the width at the 12th fret and they want to know the difference between the 1st and the 12th. But most of the time it's just the nut width down here. Now most of the guitars that I sell or get are 1 11/16 inch. You'll have to convert that into millimeters. I've gotten lazy about that. 1 11/16. Every once in a while I have a slightly chunkier one at 1 3/4 or a little bigger. But most of the time it's 1 11/16, and on some of the shorter scale guitars it's even less than that. So I consider 1 11/16 fairly standard, fairly common. I would say that that is the most occurring nut width of this smattering and plethora of acoustic guitars that I get in from all over the place. But I measure every time I mask just to make sure. And I recently ran across a potential customer who reflects quite a few experiences I've had in the past. This is somebody who has big hands, and you know, big hands doesn't really mean anything because I have big hands, but I have very thin, slender fingers. I was always told that I had piano hands. So I don't have a problem with thin necks at all. I can play ukuleles. I can play soprano ukuleles. I can get my fingers in the chords. I don't have a problem, but I realize that some people with big hands have big, fat, stubby hands. Everybody's different and has a different physiology, so you have to accommodate or try to accommodate that. But one thing in dealing with this last customer, I went and measured all my guitars, and of course they're all 1 11/16. And he wanted something 1 3/4 or larger. And I asked him out of curiosity, I said, well, we're only talking about 1/16 of an inch difference. 1 11/16 is 1/16 of an inch smaller than 1 3/4. Does it make that much of a difference? And he might have thought that I was messing with him because he was, a bit terse. I combine the words. He was a bit terse with me in his response, and I said, no, I'm not messing with you. I'm actually interested because I can't tell the difference when I'm playing guitar between a 1 11/16 and 1 3/4. I don't feel the 11/16 of an inch difference, but he said it makes a massive difference, and he can feel it right away, and he just can't play anything smaller than a 1 3/4 inch. And I imagine by that he must have, sort of short, stubby fingers, not necessarily a large hand. It must be something to do with the pads of his fingers and the string spacing being slightly too narrow at 1 11/16. And of course 1 11/16 doesn't give you the spacing of your strings exactly. There might be a slight variation in how a manufacturer cuts the nut slots on that particular nut. Now you're supposed to leave a nice gap at the end so that somebody can do vibrato on those end strings and not go over the edge. So it's the spacing between the two E strings, if I come in closer, is not 1 11/16. It's the nut width that's 1 11/16. The spacing between the two E strings might be a hair difference depending on the manufacturer or who cut the nut or what kind of nut it is. So when you're asking for a certain nut width, you're not actually per se talking about string spacing, although most good luthiers get it fairly close, how much space they leave on either side of the outside strings. I'd say it's fairly consistent, but there might be a slightly different width there. So in measuring the nut, you're not exactly measuring string spacing. So, I just asked him, is it that much of a difference? And of course, for that person, it was make or break. And consequently, we bid each other good day, and there was no sale there because I don't have currently a guitar that's 1 3/4 inches or wider than nut, except for my classical guitars, which of course are always wider, at least the traditional classicals, not the new hybrid ones. But he didn't want a nylon string guitar, he wanted a steel string guitar with a certain nut width. So I thought I'd do a video and educate myself on this. Do you require, and I know a lot of you who watch these videos are good players, luthiers or guitar techs yourself, with possibly more experience than I have. Do you have a required nut width for a guitar, and is there a certain nut width that's just not playable for you? And why? What is it about you physiologically that you can't handle it? Because like I said, if I can play a tenor or a concert ukulele, which I do, then surely I can handle a narrow profile acoustic guitar. Or maybe it's something to do with the steel versus the nylon strings. I don't know. So you let me know. Is there a certain nut width you have to stick with? Is there a nut width you just can't play? You start tripping over your hands or fingers? Or why is it, do you think, that people have these requirements that go to a 1/16 of an inch make or break situation? Interested to get your feedback. See you next time.